Let's move into December 17th, 2018, when you saved that little girl.
Yeah.
So I want you to be very descriptive. I want you to talk about every little detail that you saw, that you felt, what you were feeling, what your mindset was, all that kind of stuff. So let's just start at the very beginning. What were you doing? What was the call?
All right. Yeah, on December 17th of 2018, I was sitting in my office doing payroll for my officers, and I heard my corporal down the hall. My corporal, my lieutenant, and another officer were all in my lieutenant's office, I believe. And I heard my corporal scream for me, and I could tell by the tone of his voice it was something really serious. So I got up and ran out the hall, and as soon as I entered into the hallway, he said something to the effect of, "There's a baby drowning in a pond on Duck Henry Road." We ran out. As I was running down the hall, to the right was my lieutenant's office, the doorway, and the door was open from the hallway into his office. And I saw a man sitting in a chair unrestrained. And he just had that million-mile stare. And my brain associated, hey, this is a suspect in this somehow. Somehow when we got in the parking lot, we're getting into our cruisers to go. I believe my lieutenant had told me, or my corporal had told me, that's the father. He drowned his baby. And so we knew exactly where the pond was. And I got to tell you, in my career, I've never experienced running hot to a call where you didn't have to hit the brakes. I mean, hitting the brakes, swerving, getting out of traffic, getting into other traffic, wrong way, whatever you got to do to get to a call. Didn't experience any of that on this. It was like the streets just parted. The cars were out of the way before we ever had to get to them. We got to that call faster than I've ever gotten to a call. As soon as I arrived, I bailed out of my car, ran down the bank, into the water. My corporal was right there with me. He ended up in the water. He ended up having the baby in his hands, and he couldn't get anything to happen. And he turned the baby to me. We dug all kinds of mud and dirt and stuff out of her throat, out of her eyes, cleared her eyes up. Millie turned her over, started again, just doing compressions on her from the back.
This was in Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah, Greenwood,
Greenwood,
in Jackson County, same county as Kansas City, Missouri. Mm-hmm.
Suburb of Kansas City.
Yeah.
In the middle of December.
Right.
December 17th. So what was the temperature?
That day, I believe it was in the low 20s. There was ice that we had to break to get in the pond, right there by the bank.
You had to break ice to get to.
Yeah, we broke through ice as we entered the pond. Yeah.
So was she under?
She was face down, floating, and she wasn't under the ice. There wasn't ice as far out as she was. It was just around the bank, around the edges. Of course, the water was pretty cold, but.
So you get out of the car, you're running down to the pond.
Yeah.
And the first thing you see is a 6-month-old baby girl, face down in a pond, who was murdered by her father.
Yeah, exactly. I could see the back of her head. That's an image that's still there. Little curls on her hair, and I'm not sure. My corporal and I never really had a chance to talk about it afterward. To this day, him and I really haven't sat down and had any kind of discussion about it. But I'll get to that part later. But I believed at that point, before we ever touched the baby, I believed that this was a hoax. Because of the color of the baby, it was just pure white. It was like a porcelain doll. I really felt like it was just some guy that had a real bad mental illness problem and believed that he threw a baby in the pond, and he didn't. But it turned out to be a real baby. As soon as we put hands on it, we knew that. It was really frantic. My corporal at that time had 2 little children, a little girl and I believe a little boy. And, so he was still a pretty new father. My kids were, grown, gone, that sort of thing. But I know it had a lot of effect on him at that point. I could definitely see that. But when we're up on the bank with the baby, and my corporal held the baby out, and we're yelling at each other, and I can't hear him. And I would imagine he probably couldn't hear me. It's just nothing soaked in. We're just going off of just pure actions, more as parents than anything else at that point. But I reached down that baby's throat and dug out an enormous amount of mud and dirt and grass, and we turned her over, and I had her a long ways on my forearm, and started compressions again. And at some point, she just she let out a whimper, and she was coming to. And as we turned to run back up the bank with her to my corporal's vehicle, because he left his vehicle running, and I wanted to get her in the heat as quick as possible. As we turned to run back to that vehicle, when I turned, I saw the look on his face, and I know that he was ready to fall apart, just like I was. But we got up to the car, got the baby in the passenger front seat, got the heat blowing on her as hard as we could. I stripped down out of the rest of my uniform on the side of the road and wrapped her in it, trying to get her warm. It seemed like every minute went by, she got a little more coherent. She started moving her hands and looking around. You could see the movement in her eyes finally, things that we weren't seeing at first that was really scaring us, because at that point we had no idea how long she'd been in that pond. In my mind, I didn't even know if the father had driven from the pond to the police department or if he had walked. I didn't know. And so the more coherent she became, the better we felt, and then I kept talking to her, trying to get her attention, get her to look at me. I wasn't even worried about hearing or anything like that. I just wanted her to just be more coherent, and come to more and start acting like a baby should. Then I started calling her Goose, and I don't know why, but started calling her Goose and nicknamed her that. But she finally started looking at us. She was looking around the car, and then a guy had pulled up that lived close by, a citizen, and wanted to know if everything was okay. I asked him if he had any blankets, anything in the car we could use, and he said no, but he lived right down the street. He'll go get some. And so he took off and went back to his house to get some, which, the people in that area, that's the way they are. But the fire department showed up with their bus, their ambulance. When they finally came over and took custody, I almost didn't want to give the baby to him. I almost felt like that she needed to stay with me. But that's not how it works. But so they got her on the bus, started working with her. 5 or 6 minutes went by, I would guess, that she was on that bus. And I couldn't even tell you what my corporal was doing at that time. For all I know, he might have been on the bus. It just, there's a lot of things going through your head, at that point. So you don't, you kind of lose touch with what's going on around you. At least in my case. But I remember my corporal approached me and he said, they're telling me that she's going to be okay. She's going to be stable. She's suffering from severe hypothermia and she'll be okay. Something just, clicked in my head back to the suspect, the father, sitting in my lieutenant's office unrestrained as I ran past. That image went right back in my head, and I got back in my police car and ran hot straight back down to the police department.
Before we go back into that,
Yeah.
What's this little girl's name?
I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. I honestly couldn't. I don't know her name. And to be honest with you, and I know this isn't going to sound very good at this moment, right now I don't want to know her name. But I hope at some point, 8 or 9 years down the road, I'll get to meet her. I would love that.
I hope you get to meet her too. The report says that she was underwater for an estimated, I think, 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Before you guys got there.
Right.
That's a long time in 20-degree weather.
It is. And
underwater.
My corporal, he's been promoted since then, but my corporal, he's probably one of the best guys I ever trained. Probably one of the best guys I've ever worked with. One of the things that him and I did talk about when we got back to the police department after everything was over with, he said the baby's body temperature was measured at 86.7 degrees, I believe. I know it was either 86.7 or 87.6. Either way, it's extremely low. Now, I'm not taking anything away from my corporal or myself in any means, but I'm telling you, if that child's body temperature wasn't what it was, we would never have been able to save her. So we were just an after effect. Her organs slowing down the way they did because of her body temperature is a big part of what saved that child's life. Definitely.
Damn, man. That's some heavy shit.
Yeah. But
is there anything else that happened on scene that you want to talk about?
On scene, no, I've had to tell the story a couple times, but I do it from a very far distance, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
So the closer I get to the story, the tougher it is to tell. But it just on scene, the memory of the guy pulling up and asking to help, that's just the way those people are around that city. And the support that the citizens gave me afterwards was a big reflection of that too. But back to the story. What happened was when I entered into the police department parking lot, when you enter the building, there was an outer door that you go into, and then you're in a little foyer area. You've got two different doors you can go through. There's one that goes, if you go straight through, that door takes you down a hallway. It goes to our squad room, evidence room, my office, another office. If you take an immediate left and go through that door, straight into my lieutenant's office, which is where the suspect was. So the only way to get into either one of those doors is with a 4-digit code. And it's by policy, those doors have to be shut, which that code's always activated no matter what when they're shut. When I got out of my police car, ran through the parking lot, I remember grabbing that door to the outer foyer, the public entrance. I yanked it open, entered that foyer. I don't remember ever putting a code in. I don't remember opening a door. The next memory that I've got is me being basically punched, kicked, choked, yelled at, screamed at by my lieutenant and other officers trying to get me off the guy. I remember seeing the guy on the floor underneath me, and it was very easy for me to figure out what I did. That kind of a picture, you don't mistake what you just did to somebody, and I didn't. I immediately called my city clerk, great woman. She heard some of the ruckus from City Hall. They're connected to the police department. And she came over and was screaming, wanting to know what's going on. Is everybody okay? And I said, yeah, it's okay. I was in a pretty bad state at that point, and I just said, I resign. I quit. She said, no, we're not going to let you. And I shut myself in my office and stayed in there for about 20 minutes, trying to get myself calmed down, and then called my mayor, Levi Weaver, good man. I told him I was going to resign. I said, I resign, I quit. I resigned my post. And he didn't know what had happened. He had zero idea. And he said, Chief, no, never. And he wouldn't let me. So that's kind of people I was with. So that was big.
Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Shawn Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.